This is Global One Media's Stocks to Watch. I'm your host, Michelle Martin. Total Helium is an exploration and production company with a mission to ensure a stable and green supply of helium for the world and to help the United States and Canada become more self-sufficient in meeting global market demands for the resource. Total Helium trades in Canada on the TSXV Venture Exchange as TOH, over the counter in the US as TTLHF, and in Frankfurt as Y02. Robert B. Price is the CEO of Total Helium. Welcome, Robert, to Stocks to Watch.
Michelle, it's such a pleasure to be with you on Stocks to Watch. Thank you.
Now, from high-tech chip manufacturing to MRIs, many people may not know about the wide and the critical use cases of the element helium, which we'll get to in just a bit. But help us understand, what is driving demand? Is the world running out of helium, Robert?
Yeah, the answer, Michelle, is yes. Helium is a critical and irreplaceable element. Backing up to a historical standpoint, the United States government, they got in the helium business back during World War I, and they started storing helium. Since then, the field that they produce most of the helium from is now depleted, and the United States government is shutting down their helium storage. So much of the industry has relied on this reliable supply of helium. Since then, the only two supplies of helium are coming either from Russia or Qatar. Now, Michelle, if you are a semiconductor manufacturing company that is building literally multi-billion-dollar semiconductor plants here in the United States, all based on the CHIPS Act. United States Congress, they passed the CHIPS Act, $50 billion of spending and grants to make the United States and Canada independent on foreign supplies of chips. And so with these manufacturers needing this key element of helium, which is used to etch the semiconductors. As a semiconductor manufacturing company spending tens of billions of dollars on onshoring semiconductor manufacturing here in the United States, if you go to an industrial gas company and request a reliable on-demand supply of helium, and if the answer is we're going to get that helium from either Russia or Qatar, the semiconductor saying just spent $10 million, the answer is no. We want a domestic supply of helium here in the United States, not only for semiconductor manufacturing, but the space program. SpaceX, they shoot off one rocket every 4 days. Again, SpaceX shoots off one rocket every 4 days. Helium is used. It's inert and it doesn't react with any other gases. So it's used to separate the hot and cold gases of each rocket launch. It's used to purge the other gases because it's such a small element. And it's interesting that Elon Musk, he tweets out or X's out from time to time his frustration with not only helium prices, but the supply of helium and some of the problems with some of the launches because of helium. Michelle, when you mentioned MRI machines, it is its cooling properties that cools down the magnets. Just about every MRI machine needs helium to cool the magnets. We're also seeing an increased demand in quantum computing. It's used to cool those supercomputers.
Amazing. So from the medical industry to onshoring supply chains for chip manufacturers, to cooling nuclear plants, the use cases are wide and varied, but so critical this element is to America's high-tech industry's requirements. Talk to us a little bit more about what Total Helium does. It wears two hats, I understand. You're a producer and a developer and explorer of helium. Can you shed some light on your wells? I believe you have 19. What is your current production capacity like?
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. So Total Helium, we have partnered with one of the largest industrial gas companies in the world, Linde. It's spelled Linde. They're about an $180 billion market cap. They supply many of the industries that we just talked about, the space industry, semiconductor manufacturers, MRIs, and so forth. They have funded the pipeline expansion in what we call our flagship project in Arizona. So Linde has funded our expansion of our project. So we have 19 wells. 9 of them are currently producing. Each one of these wells will come on at somewhere around 100 to 125 MCF a day. Now, Michelle, that may not sound like a lot, but when we're getting paid up to $500 an MCF, that is a very significant amount of revenue. And that is on just one well that costs us $220,000 to drill, complete, and hook into the pipeline. That one well will generate up to $100,000 a month in gross revenue. And so we are in the phase of starting to scale this project. What does that mean? We have over 300 locations that we can drill. So as we start drilling more wells and completing the wells and hooking them into our pipeline infrastructure that Linde has funded.
Incredible growth strategies ahead. Very exciting. Can you share your projected timeline for the development and the expansion specifically of your Pinta South project?
Yes. It's interesting, Michelle. Some people, they refer to the Pinta South project as the Saudi Arabia of helium. Why is that? Because much of the helium, whether it's from Russia or Qatar, it's 0.1%. So imagine you have a natural gas stream and only 0.1% is helium in that stream. So it's a very small percentage. So you need a massive quantity of gas to be able to make up for that small percentage. Here in the Pinta South, also referred to as the Saudi Arabia of helium, our helium concentrations are 5 to 8%, which is truly extraordinary. As we start developing these 300 additional wells, we have a 50% working interest in it. Each one of the wells costs $220,000. So Total Helium's share of that is $1.1 million. So we will start drilling on packages of 10 wells. So Total Helium will spend $1.1 million for every 10 wells that we bring online. And so what we're doing, Michelle, is we're managing our cash flow. First of all, we have an agreement where we sell our helium for $500 an MCF. We hedge the helium because right now helium prices, they're ranging from anywhere from $700 to $1,000 an MCF. So as we hedge some of our production, lock the revenue in on the first 10 wells, the next 10 wells, we're able to sell it at a higher price. So as we manage our cash flow, we will be able to develop the field mostly from managing our cash flow. And so we'll be doing that towards the third and fourth quarter of this year and then on into 2024.
Great stuff, Robert. I'm speaking with Robert B. Price, CEO of Total Helium. Help me understand what sets Total Helium apart from other producers or explorers in the North American helium market.
Yes. So one of the big distinctions is we are producing high percentage of helium in our field, 5 to 8%. Other producers, they struggle to get 1% helium in their gas stream. And so that's really a big distinction. We don't need flashy big wells to be able to make highly profitable wells when you have that high helium percentage. That's first of all. But second of all, Michelle, there are only 2 publicly companies that I know about that are currently producing helium. One of them is ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil has a field in Wyoming that is a very prolific field, but their helium concentration is 0.5% in that field. Total Helium, again, as far as I know, is the only company that is currently producing helium and generating revenue. That's probably the biggest distinguishing factor. But as we develop this field, Michelle, it's a blanket sand. So all the economics they have talked about are based on the blanket sand. As we drill through, there are deeper horizons and there are sand channels. Those wells will pay out in a matter of weeks. It's truly an incredibly prolific formation. So that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about this is you have the lower risk developmental drilling, and then we have the great upside of the sand channels and the deeper formations.
Speaking of drilling, help me understand how Total Helium is taking a sustainable approach to helium production.
Yeah. So, Michelle, as I mentioned about the other oil and gas companies, they're oil and gas companies. Their helium is part of methane. So they're even in oil or natural gas. And so you need to have massive processing facilities to break the oil and gas out from the helium. Here in the Pinta South Field, our flagship field, we have 5 to 8% helium. The rest of the gas stream is nitrogen. Well, Michelle, 78% of the atmosphere, what we breathe, is nitrogen. So as we produce our helium and nitrogen, we just vent the nitrogen to the atmosphere, and we are able to produce the helium. It is truly, again, as far as I know, one of the only green supplies, if not the only green supply of helium in the world.
Just amazing. Incredible insights here. Can you tell us a little bit more about your low-cost, low-risk strategies that Total Helium employs?
Yeah, that's about developing the blanket sand and drilling the low-risk wells. We have partnered with a company that Brad Butler owns. He has his own drilling rigs, cementing equipment, and other equipment to be able to drill the field up. Now, that makes us less dependent on oil field suppliers, people that supply, bringing rigs in. Now, because this particular basin, it's called the Holbrook Basin, it is void of any hydrocarbons. So you don't have the normal drilling services that are there. And so we've been able to build up our own services as we develop this field.
Just incredible. Tell us a little bit about the investment thesis for Total Helium, Robert. I know you had a background in banking and then oil and gas. For investors listening in, why should they consider Total Helium as a stock to watch?
Oh, Michelle, this is my favorite part. Thanks for asking that question. So yes, coming from the oil and gas industry, we have all of the talents of engineers, geologists, land negotiators, to actually drill and extract helium. Here, the investment thesis is I could go drill a well for natural gas. And that well, at the current spot prices, would pay between $2 and $3 an MCF at the wellhead. Or I could go drill a well for helium, and I could receive between $500 and $1,000 an MCF. The investment thesis for me was clear. Why drill for oil or gas and get a marginal price when we could focus on one of the most rarest critical elements on Earth and produce it at the high price and be able to be so beneficial for society when it comes to the space industry and telecommunications, semiconductor manufacturing, MRI, medical applications. It's truly a pleasure to be able to extract the naturally occurring helium and be able to produce it without any hydrocarbons, Michelle.
We've been learning about the operations and progress of the drilling strategy of Total Helium with Robert B. Price, the CEO. Robert, amazing to speak with you. Thank you for your insights.
Excellent. Thank you, Michelle.